Today I turned my wife as a affair to ash, now I'm tearing down every lie on this street.
The first thing you need to know about suburban Dallas is that everyone's marriage is perfect until it isn't. And when it isn't, the whole neighborhood finds out before you finish your morning coffee. My name is Mason Cole, and I'm a civil engineer who thought he had life figured out. 38 years old, decent salary, nice house in Preston Hollow, and a wife who looked like she stepped out of a magazine. Vanessa Cole was everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful, successful, and social enough to make our dinner parties legendary. The second thing you need to know is that I'm an idiot. It was a Tuesday morning when my perfect life started cracking like poorly mixed concrete. I was reviewing blueprints for a new shopping center when Vanessa's phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. She was upstairs getting ready for work, and the screen lit up with a text from someone named T-Fit. "Can't wait to see you tonight, gorgeous. Wear the red." Now, I'm not the jealous type, but I'm also not blind. Vanessa had been working late a lot recently, hitting the gym more often and buying lingerie that never seemed to make it into our bedroom. The pieces were there. I just hadn't wanted to put them together. I set down my coffee and stared at that phone like it might explode. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't seen anything, go back to my blueprints and my comfortable denial. But engineers don't ignore structural problems, and my marriage was showing some serious foundation issues. "Honey, have you seen my phone?" Vanessa called from upstairs. "Kitchen counter," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. She came down wearing a black dress that was definitely not appropriate for her marketing job at a tech startup. The neckline plunged, the hem barely covered her thighs, and she'd paired it with heels that could double as weapons. "Big client meeting today?" I asked, nodding toward her outfit. She glanced down like she'd forgotten what she was wearing. "Oh, this just felt like dressing up. You know how it is." I didn't know how it is. In 10 years of marriage, Vanessa had never dressed like that for work. She grabbed her phone, and I watched her face as she read the message. A smile flickered across her lips, the kind of smile she used to give me. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Perfect," she said, kissing my cheek. "I'll be late tonight, girls' night with Blair and Cassie." After she left, I sat in our kitchen with its granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, surrounded by the trappings of our successful life, and felt something cold settle in my chest. I'd built bridges that could handle millions of pounds of stress, but I couldn't figure out how to shore up my own marriage. My phone rang. Theo Martinez, my best friend since college, and the only IT guy I knew who could make debugging software sound like a contact sport. "What's up, Mason? You sound like someone stole your calculator." "Hypothetically," I said, "if you suspected your wife was cheating, what would you do?" "Hypothetically, I'd hire a PI and get proof before doing anything stupid." "Why, is Vanessa—" "Just hypothetical." "Right. Well, hypothetically, you could also check her social media activity. People are idiots about digital footprints. Want me to take a look?" I almost said no, almost chose ignorance over truth. But engineers solve problems. We don't ignore them. "Yeah, do it." 2 hours later, Theo calling back. "Mason, you need to sit down." I'm sitting. She's been checking in at Apex Fitness 3 times a week for the past 2 months. The owner is a guy named Trent Cross. Ring any bells? "To fit," I said. "Bingo." "And Mason? She's not just working out there. I found photos on her Instagram stories. Deleted ones, but I recovered them. She's been to his apartment, some fancy place in Uptown. The metadata shows she was there until 2 in the morning last Thursday. Last Thursday, the night she said she was at her book club. "There's more," Theo continued. "I found a group chat between her and her friends, Blair, Cassie, and some woman named Jules. They've been discussing you." "What kind of discussing?" "The kind where they call you Mason the Boring and talk about how Vanessa deserves better. Blair actually wrote, 'When are you going to dump the engineer and upgrade to someone with actual muscles?'" I felt something break inside me, but it wasn't my heart. It was something harder, more structural, like the load-bearing beam of my patience had finally snapped. "Send me everything," I said. "Mason, what are you planning?" "I'm an engineer, Theo. I solve problems." That evening, I waited. Vanessa came home at midnight, reeking of expensive cologne that wasn't mine, and trying to act casual. She kissed me on the forehead like I was her brother and headed for the shower. While the water ran, I looked through her purse. Credit card receipts from restaurants I'd never been to, a hotel key card from the W Hotel, and a note written in masculine handwriting. Tonight was incredible, Can't wait to make you mine completely. I sat on our bed, the bed we'd picked out together, where we'd made love, where we'd planned our future, and felt the last of my illusions crumble. When Vanessa came out of the bathroom in her silk robe, I was holding the note. "We need to talk," I said. Her face went through several expressions before settling on defiance. "It's not what you think." "Really?" "Because I think my wife is screwing a gym owner named Trent Cross. I think she's been lying to me for months. And I think her friends have been making jokes about what a pathetic husband I am." Vanessa sat down hard on the edge of the bed. For a moment, she looked almost relieved. "Mason, I can explain." "Don't." I stood up, and something in my voice made her flinch. "I've seen the photos, the texts, the receipts. I know about the hotel, the late nights, all of it. The only question now is what we do next." She tried tears first. When that didn't work, she tried anger, then bargaining. Finally, she tried seduction, letting her robe slip open as she reached for me. I stepped back like she was radioactive. "Get dressed, Vanessa. We're done here." "Mason, please. It didn't mean anything. He doesn't mean anything." "But I do, right? That's why you've been humiliating me behind my back for months." She had no answer for that. I walked to our closet and pulled out a suitcase. "You can stay here tonight. Tomorrow, I want you gone." "You can't throw me out of my own house." "Actually, I can. The house is in my name, remember? Your credit was shot when we got married." Her face twisted with rage. "You coward! You think you're so smart, but you have no idea what you're giving up." "I'm giving up a cheating wife and a bunch of fake friends. I think I'll survive." I packed quickly while she stood there, alternating between threats and pleas. When I reached the bedroom door, she grabbed my arm. "This isn't over, Mason." I looked down at her hand, then up at her face. "Yes, it is. But don't worry, I'm sure Trent will take good care of you, at least until he gets bored." I left her standing in our bedroom and drove to a hotel. Not the W. I wasn't that masochistic. As I lay in the narrow hotel bed staring at the ceiling, I thought about structural engineering. When a building shows signs of failure, you have two choices: repair it or demolish it and build something better. My marriage was beyond repair, but I was just getting started on the demolition. The next morning, I went back to the house while Vanessa was at work. I had every legal right to be there, but it still felt like breaking and entering. Funny how quickly your own home can feel foreign. I wasn't there for sentiment. I was there for evidence and, if I'm being honest, a little symbolic justice. First stop, Vanessa's dresser. The top drawer was full of lingerie I'd never seen her wear. At least not for me. Silk and lace in every color, some with price tags still attached. The receipts in her purse made more sense now. She'd been building a whole new wardrobe for her affair. I gathered it all. Every bra, every pair of underwear, every teddy and negligee, and carried it out to the backyard. Our fire pit had never been used for anything more exciting than s'mores, but today it was getting an upgrade. The silk burned beautifully. The lace took longer, but I was patient. I watched 10 years of marriage and thousands of dollars in lingerie turn to ash and felt something like peace settle over me. My phone buzzed. Vanessa. "Where are you?" "I came home for lunch and you're not here. Check the backyard," I texted back. 3 minutes later, she called, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You burned my clothes. You psycho. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I said calmly. "They were purchased with my credit card, in my house, by my wife who was using them to cheat on me. I think I'll be fine." She hung up on me. I scooped the ashes into a decorative box I'd found in our closet, something Vanessa had bought for storing love letters we'd never written, and drove to her parents' house in Highland Park. Richard and Diane Hartwell lived in the kind of mansion that made our house look like a starter home. Old Dallas money, the kind that came with oil leases and cotton fortunes. They'd never thought I was good enough for their daughter, and they'd never bothered to hide it. Richard answered the door in his golf clothes, looking annoyed at the interruption. "Mason, what do you want?" I held up the box. "I brought you a present from your daughter." "What are you talking about?" "Vanessa's been having an affair. These are the ashes of the lingerie she bought for her boyfriend. I thought you should know what kind of woman you raised." His face went through several colors before settling on purple. "You're lying." I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos Theo had recovered. Vanessa and Trent at a restaurant, his hand clearly on her thigh under the table. "She's been cheating for months with a gym owner named Trent Cross. Your precious daughter is a liar and a cheat, and I'm done pretending otherwise." Richard grabbed the door frame. For a moment, I thought he might take a swing at me. Instead, he clutched his chest and gasped. Richard! Diane appeared behind him, took one look at his face, and started screaming for help. I caught him as he fell, his weight surprising me. Call 911, I told Diane, but she was already dialing. 20 minutes later, I was following an ambulance to Presbyterian Hospital, wondering if I'd just ended my father-in-law with the truth. Vanessa met us at the emergency room, her face streaked with mascara and fury. What did you do to him? I told him about your affair. Apparently, the truth gave him chest pains. She slapped me, hard, right there in the hospital waiting room, in front of nurses and other families dealing with their own crises. I didn't hit her back. I didn't even flinch. I just looked at her with the same expression I'd use for a failed inspection. Feel better? You coward. If he dies, it's your fault. No, Vanessa. If he dies, it's because he raised a daughter who thinks marriage vows are suggestions. Diane emerged from the treatment area, her eyes red but relieved. He's stable. Stress-induced angina, not a heart attack. But the doctor wants to keep him overnight for observation. She looked at both of us, then focused on Vanessa. I want to know what's going on, right now. Vanessa tried to spin it, make me the villain, but I had photos and text messages and credit card receipts. By the time I finished laying out the evidence, Diane was looking at her daughter like she'd never seen her before. Is this true? She asked quietly. Vanessa's defiance crumbled. Mama, I can explain. Is it true? Yes, but... Diane slapped her, harder than Vanessa had hit me. Get out, she said. Don't come back until you figure out how to be the woman I thought I raised. Vanessa looked between us, tears streaming down her face. You're both going to regret this. Trent and I, we're in love. Real love. Not whatever pathetic arrangement Mason and I had. Then go be in love, I said. Just do it somewhere else. She left, her heels clicking angrily on the hospital linoleum. Diane and I sat in uncomfortable silence until she spoke. I owe you an apology, Mason. Richard and I never thought you were right for Vanessa, but maybe the problem was that Vanessa wasn't right for you. Maybe. What will you do now? I thought about it. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who your daughter really is. And then I'm going to make sure she regrets every lie she told and every person she hurt. Diane studied my face. That doesn't sound like you. The old me died when I found out my wife was screwing around. This is the new me. And what's the new you like? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice expression. The new me is an engineer with a problem to solve. And I'm very good at solving problems. Theo's apartment looked like a computer store had exploded. Monitors covered every surface, cables snaked across the floor, and the air hummed with the sound of cooling fans. It was the perfect place to plan a campaign. Okay, he said, cracking his knuckles like a pianist preparing for Carnegie Hall. What's the target? I want to know everything about Trent Cross. Where he lives, where he banks, who he owes money to, what kind of car he drives, everything. Legal everything or illegal everything? Legal. I'm not going to jail for this. Theo's fingers flew over his keyboard. Trent Michael Cross, age 41, owns Apex Fitness, drives a custom Mustang GT, lives in a condo in Uptown that costs more than most people's houses. And here's where it gets interesting. His gym is hemorrhaging money. What do you mean? I mean he's 3 months behind on rent. His equipment is being repossessed, and his insurance lapsed 2 weeks ago. Your wife picked a real winner. I leaned forward. How do you know all this? Public records, mostly. Business filings, court documents, property records. It's amazing what people don't realize is available online. What else? He's got a history. 2 DUIs, 1 attack charge that was dropped, and a restraining order from an ex-girlfriend. Oh, and he's been married twice. Both wives divorced him for cheating. Vanessa really knows how to pick them. There's more. I hacked his social media. Theo, relax. I didn't break any laws. His passwords are pathetic. Anyway, he's been bragging to his buddies about his rich married chick who's going to solve all his financial problems. I felt something cold and sharp twist in my chest. He's using her. Looks like it, and she has no idea. I should have felt sorry for Vanessa. Should have felt some protective instinct for the woman I'd loved for 10 years. Instead, I felt something much darker. I want to meet him, I said. Bad idea. I want to look him in the eye and see what she threw away our marriage for. Theo sighed. If you're determined to do something stupid, at least let me help. We'll make it look accidental. That afternoon, we went to Apex Fitness. It was one of those upscale gyms that charged 3 times what a normal gym cost and justified it with fancy equipment and attractive trainers. The kind of place where people went to be seen working out rather than actually getting in shape. Trent was easy to spot. He looked exactly like what central casting would order for a sleazy gym owner. Spray tan, bleached teeth, muscles that were more show than function, and an ego you could see from space. He was standing near the front desk, talking to a blonde in yoga pants who was young enough to be his daughter. His hand was on her lower back, just above the waistband of her pants, and she was giggling at everything he said. "That's him," I told Theo. "He looks like a Ken doll that came to life and immediately started selling steroids. Be nice. That's the man my wife left me for." I walked over to the membership desk and asked about joining. The receptionist, a brunette who looked like she'd stepped out of a fitness magazine, started her sales pitch immediately. "We have several membership options," she said, leaning forward to give me a better view of her cleavage. "Are you interested in personal training? Maybe. Who's the best trainer you have?" "That would be Trent," she said, nodding toward my target. "He owns the place, and he's amazing. Really knows how to push you to your limits." "I bet he does." She called him over, and I got my first close look at the man who'd destroyed my marriage. He was handsome in a generic way, like a stock photo model, but his eyes were cold, calculating, the kind of eyes that saw people as opportunities rather than human beings. "This is Mason," the receptionist said. "He's interested in membership and personal training." Trent looked me up and down, sizing me up like an aggressor evaluating prey. "What are your fitness goals, Mason?" "I want to get strong enough to handle whatever life throws at me." "I can work with that. What do you do for a living?" "I'm an engineer." Something flickered in his eyes. Recognition? Suspicion? "What kind of engineering?" "Civil. I build things that last." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's good. I like to tear things down and build them back up stronger." "Is that what you do with all your clients? The ones who can handle it?" We talked for a few more minutes, but I could tell he was distracted. He kept checking his phone, and I caught a glimpse of Vanessa's name on his screen. "I need to think about it," I said finally. "Don't think too long," Trent said. "Opportunities like this don't last forever." As we walked to the parking lot, Theo shook his head. "He's exactly what I expected. Slimy, arrogant, and dumber than a box of rocks. He's also broke and desperate. That makes him dangerous. What's the plan?" I thought about it as we drove back to Theo's place. Vanessa had chosen Trent over me, but she didn't know what she'd really chosen. She thought she was upgrading to someone more exciting, more attractive, more successful. She had no idea she'd actually downgraded to a failing businessman who saw her as a meal ticket. The question was, did I tell her the truth, or did I let her find out the hard way? "I want you to dig deeper," I said finally. "Find out exactly how bad his financial situation is. Find out who he owes money to. Find out everything. And then, I'm going to give my wife exactly what she asked for." That night, I sat in my hotel room with a bottle of bourbon and thought about the man Vanessa had chosen over me. Trent Cross was everything I wasn't. Flashy, aggressive, confident, in the way that only comes from never having been truly tested. He was the kind of man who looked good in photos and terrible in real life. But Vanessa didn't see that. She saw the muscles and the charm and the expensive car, and she thought she was trading up. She had no idea she was about to learn the difference between what something looks like and what it actually is. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Stay away from my gym and my girl, or you'll regret it." I smiled and typed back, "Which girl? The receptionist, the trainer, or my wife?" No response. I poured another bourbon and started planning. Trent Cross thought he was dealing with a boring engineer who would roll over and play dead. He was about to find out that engineers don't just build things. Sometimes we demolish them, too. The next morning brought a call from Diane Hartwell. "Mason, I need to see you. Can you come to the house?" "How's Richard?" "Stable, angry, but stable." "That's actually what I want to talk to you about." An hour later, I was sitting in the Hartwells' living room, surrounded by oil paintings and antique furniture that cost more than most people's cars. Diane looked like she'd aged 10 years in the past week. "Richard wants to cut Vanessa off," she said without preamble. "Completely. No more credit cards, no more allowance, no more safety net. That's between you and her." "No, it's not, because she's been telling people that you're having a breakdown, that you're stalking her and threatening her boyfriend. She's painting herself as the sufferer." I set down my coffee cup carefully. What people? Everyone. Her friends, our friends, people at the country club. She's saying you burned her clothes in some kind of psychotic episode. I burned lingerie she bought for her affair. There's a difference. I know that, but the story she's telling makes you sound dangerous and her sound sympathetic. I thought about this. It was smart, actually, and get ahead of the narrative, control the story, make herself the wrong party instead of the cheating wife. Classic damage control. What do you want me to do about it? I want you to tell your side. Richard and I will back you up, but people need to hear the truth from you. And if I don't, then she wins. She gets to be the poor, mistreated wife who escaped her crazy husband, and you get to be the villain. I looked around the room at the family photos that still included pictures of Vanessa and me from happier times. In one, we were dancing at our wedding, both of us laughing at something I couldn't remember. We looked happy. We looked like we were going to make it. All right, I said. I'll tell my side, but I'm going to tell all of it. That evening, I went to the country club. Not as a member, I'd never been able to afford the fees, but as Diane's guest. She'd arranged for me to speak to the board of the charity foundation where Vanessa volunteered, the same foundation where she'd met most of her friends. The room was full of Dallas society types, the kind of people who measured their worth in charity galas and social media followers. They looked at me like I was a fascinating zoo exhibit, the engineer who'd lost his wife to a younger, more exciting man. I stood up and looked around the room. Blair was there, Vanessa's best friend and biggest enabler. Cassie sat next to her, already looking uncomfortable. Jules, the third member of their little coven, was checking her phone like she had somewhere more important to be. Thank you for coming, I began. I know you've all heard Vanessa's version of recent events. I thought you might like to hear mine. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the room's projection system. The first image that appeared was a screenshot of the group chat Theo had recovered. This is from a conversation between my wife and her friends, I said, reading directly from the screen. Mason is so boring. All he talks about is work and his stupid bridges. When are you going to dump him and find someone with actual personality? Blair's face went white. Cassie was staring at her hands. Jules had stopped checking her phone. Here's another one, I said, advancing to the next screenshot. I can't believe you're still married to that loser. Trent is so much hotter. When are you going to make the switch official? I looked directly at Blair. That one's from you, Blair. 3 months ago, before I had any idea what was happening. The room was completely silent. I could hear the air conditioning humming and the distant sound of traffic from the street. Now, Vanessa has been telling people that I'm having a breakdown, that I'm stalking her and threatening her boyfriend. Let me show you what actually happened. I displayed the hotel receipt, the credit card charges, the photos of Vanessa and Trent together. I read some of the text messages, the ones that made it clear this wasn't a recent development or a moment of weakness, but a calculated, ongoing betrayal. I burned her lingerie, I said finally. The lingerie she bought for her affair, with my money, while lying to my face about book clubs and girls' nights. If that makes me crazy, then I guess I'm crazy. I disconnected my phone and looked around the room. Vanessa made her choice. She chose a man who's been married twice, who's facing bankruptcy, who has a history of domestic violence. She chose someone who brags to his friends about his rich married chick, who's going to solve all his financial problems. She chose someone who's already cheating on her with his gym's receptionist. That last part was a guess, but the way Blair's eyes widened told me I'd hit close to the mark. I'm not here for your sympathy, I continued. I am here because Vanessa is trying to rewrite history, and I won't let her turn me into the villain in her story. She made her bed. Now she can lie in it. I walked out of the room and didn't look back. The next few days were interesting. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, lawyers, friends I hadn't heard from in years. The story had legs, apparently. Cheating wife, burned lingerie, society scandal. It had everything the Dallas gossip mill loved. Theo called with updates. Trent's gym lost 3 major corporate accounts today. Apparently, their executives' wives are all members of that charity foundation. Collateral damage. Also, someone called in an anonymous tip to the health department. Turns out Apex Fitness has been operating with expired certifications for 6 months. Interesting. And here's the best part. Vanessa showed up at his condo last night with suitcases. The doorman says she was crying. I felt a momentary pang of something that might have been sympathy. Then I remembered the group chat, the lies, the months of deception. Good for her, she got what she wanted. Mason, there's something else. Trent called you, didn't he? Threatened you? Yeah, so? So he's escalating. I've been monitoring his social media and he's getting increasingly aggressive, posting stuff about dealing with problems and teaching lessons. I think he might try something. Let him try. I'm serious. This guy has a history of violence, and you just cost him his business. He's got nothing left to lose. I thought about this. Theo is right. Desperate people did desperate things, and Trent Cross was definitely desperate. What do you suggest? Cameras? Security system? Maybe a concealed carry permit? I'm not shooting anyone over this. Then at least get the cameras. If he tries something, you'll have proof. That night, I installed a security system in my hotel room and my car. It seemed like overkill, but engineers believe in redundancy. Better to have protection you don't need than to need protection you don't have. I was right to be paranoid. At 3 in the morning, someone tried to break into my hotel room. The security cameras caught everything, a figure in dark clothes and a baseball cap, trying to jimmy the lock with a credit card. When that didn't work, he tried the window. When that didn't work, he gave up and left. But not before looking directly into one of my cameras and giving me a perfect shot of his face. It wasn't Trent Cross. It was someone I'd never seen before. Someone with the kind of face that suggested violence was a profession rather than a hobby. I called the police, but they weren't much help. No actual break-in had occurred, and the video wasn't clear enough for identification. They took a report and told me to be careful. I called Theo. Someone tried to break into my room last night. Trent? No, someone else. Someone who looked like he knew what he was doing. Professional? Maybe, or maybe just experienced. Theo was quiet for a moment. Mason, I think you need to end this. Whatever you're planning, whatever your endgame is, you need to accelerate it. This is getting dangerous. He was right. I've been playing a long game, letting Vanessa and Trent destroy themselves slowly. But slow destruction was a luxury I could no longer afford. It was time to finish what they'd started. Set up a meeting, I told him. All of them. Vanessa, Trent, her friends. Somewhere public, somewhere safe. What kind of meeting? The kind where everything comes out. The kind where everyone learns the truth about everyone else. And then we see who's left standing when the dust settles. I hung up and looked out my hotel window at the Dallas skyline. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was probably lying awake next to her new boyfriend, wondering how her perfect plan had gone so wrong. Somewhere out there, Trent was probably planning his next move, trying to figure out how to salvage his reputation and his business. They thought they were dealing with a boring engineer who would roll over and disappear quietly. They were about to find out how wrong they were. Because engineers don't just build things and tear things down. Sometimes we blow things up. And I was about to detonate everything they'd built on the foundation of my destroyed marriage. Character count, 28,047. The meeting was set for Saturday afternoon at Clyde Warren Park, right in the heart of downtown Dallas. Public enough to be safe, open enough that everyone could see everyone else coming. Theo had done his job perfectly. Vanessa thought she was meeting Blair for lunch. Trent thought he was meeting a potential investor. And Blair thought she was mediating between me and Vanessa. I arrived early and chose a table with clear sight lines in all directions. The park was busy with families and couples enjoying the weekend, which was exactly what I wanted. Hard to start trouble when there are kids playing nearby. Vanessa arrived first, looking nervous and overdressed in a designer outfit that probably cost more than most people's rent. She spotted me immediately, and her face went through several expressions before settling on anger. What is this, Mason? Blair said you wanted to talk. I do want to talk. Have a seat. She remained standing. I have nothing to say to you. Then listen. Trent arrived next, and I had to admire his timing. He'd clearly been watching from a distance, waiting to see who else showed up. He approached our table like he was walking into a boxing ring, all swagger and intimidation. Well, well, he said, pulling out a chair without being invited. The husband wants to chat. This should be interesting. Blair appeared a few minutes later, looking confused and increasingly panicked as she realized what was happening. Mason, what's going on? You said this was about charity work. Sit down, Blair. This is about charity work. The charity work you've been doing for my wife's ego. Cassie and Jules arrived together, both checking their phones and looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. When they saw the assembled group, they started to back away. Ladies, I called out, don't leave. This concerns you too. They reluctantly joined us, creating a circle of uncomfortable people around a picnic table in the middle of Dallas. Now that we're all here, I began, let's talk about truth. about lies, about what happens when people think they're smarter than they actually are. I pulled out my phone and set it on the table. Trent, tell me about your business. What about it? How's it going? Making money, paying your bills? His jaw tightened. That's none of your business. Actually, it is, because you've been telling my wife that you're successful, that you can provide for her, that you're her ticket to a better life. But that's not true, is it? I tapped my phone and the speaker came to life with a recorded conversation. Trent's voice, slightly distorted but clearly recognizable, talking to someone about his financial problems. I'm 3 months behind on everything, man. The gym is finished unless I find money fast. But I've got this married chick, right? Her family's loaded. Once I get her to leave her husband, I'll be set. Vanessa's face went white. That's not... You didn't... Oh, but he did, I said, advancing to another recording. Here he is talking to his buddy about your first night together. Trent's voice again. She's desperate for attention, easy to manipulate. Keeps buying me stuff, paying for dinners. I just have to tell her she's beautiful, and she opens her wallet. Vanessa looked like she might be sick. You recorded him? I didn't record anything. These are from his own phone calls, made on gym equipment that records for insurance purposes. Amazing what people don't know about their own technology. That was a lie, but a convincing one. Actually, Theo had hacked Trent's phone and recorded several conversations, but that was a detail they didn't need to know. But wait, I continued, there's more. Trent, tell Vanessa about your other girlfriend. I don't know what you're talking about. I played another recording. Trent making plans with someone named Jessica, the gym's receptionist, for the same night he was supposed to be with Vanessa. You son of an unpleasant person, Vanessa whispered, but she was looking at Trent, not me. Now, Vanessa, I said, tell Trent about your friend's real opinion of him. I played the group chat recordings, Blair and Cassie and Jules laughing about Trent's spray tan, his obvious steroid use, his pathetic attempts to seem sophisticated. He's like a Ken doll that came to life and immediately started selling illegal substances, I read from one of Blair's messages. I can't believe Vanessa is actually sleeping with him. Trent's face was getting red. You unpleasant people were laughing at me? And, Blair, I continued, tell everyone about your husband's business dealings with Richard Hartwell. Blair went very still. What are you talking about? The insider trading, the real estate deals. The reason you've been so supportive of Vanessa's affair, because you need to stay in the family's good graces. That one was pure speculation, but Blair's expression told me I'd hit the target. You don't know anything, she said, but her voice was shaking. I know enough. I know that everyone at this table has been using everyone else. I know that none of you actually care about each other. You're all just players in your own little games, and you're all terrible at it. I stood up and looked around the table. Vanessa, you threw away 10 years of marriage for a broke con man who was planning to dump you as soon as he got what he wanted. Trent, you bet everything on a woman whose family now wants nothing to do with her. Blair, you enabled your best friend's affair to protect your own financial interests. And Cassie and Jules, you went along with all of it because you were too weak to stand up to any of them. What do you want? Vanessa asked quietly. I want you to understand what you've done. To yourselves, to each other, to me. I want you to live with the consequences of your choices. I picked up my phone and started walking away. Mason? Vanessa called after me. What happens now? I turned back to look at her one last time. She looked small and lost, sitting at that picnic table surrounded by people who had never really been her friends. Now you get exactly what you asked for. You wanted excitement instead of stability. You wanted passion instead of partnership. You wanted someone who would sweep you off your feet instead of someone who would catch you when you fell. I gestured toward Trent, who was staring at his phone like it might explode. Congratulations, you got it. As I walked away, I could hear them starting to argue behind me. Voices rising, accusations flying, years of fake friendship dissolving into recrimination and blame. I didn't look back. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my new apartment, a clean, modern place with a view of the city and no memories attached, when Theo called with updates. Trent's gym closed yesterday, bankruptcy court, everything liquidated. He's moved back in with his mother in Garland. And Vanessa? Working at a department store in North Park Mall. Apparently her parents cut her off completely, and without Trent's imaginary money, she can't afford her old lifestyle. What about her friends? Blair's husband is under investigation for securities fraud. Cassie moved to Houston. Jules is pretending none of this ever happened. I felt something that might have been satisfaction or might have been sadness. It was hard to tell the difference anymore. Any regrets? Theo asked. I thought about it. About the woman I'd married, the life we'd built, the future we'd planned. About the moment I'd realized it was all built on lies and self-deception. No, I said finally. No regrets. Because engineers understand something that other people don't. Sometimes you have to tear down the old structure completely before you can build something new. Sometimes destruction is just the first step in construction. And I was ready to start building again. The end.